Well, everyone, you guys already know I had to do it on you. That's like the weirdest way I could say it. I did this video last year, and it's not every day I talk about a Blackberry device, but in the beginning of the year, I'm trying to get out as many of these videos as possible. So today, we're going to be talking about none other than the Blackberry Passport, seeing how it holds up in 2020, seeing all those cool little things, quirks, features, all those things. Now, what I can tell you is last year I made this video, and a lot of you guys hated on me for doing it. I don't think I got a lot of things wrong. I just think a lot of people didn't like my opinion on it. So after using it for a little bit longer, I guess I'll change my opinion a little bit, but it's still going to be about the same if I'm being honest. But I want to say this phone is not a bad phone, and I understand its place in the market. It's not supposed to be like the latest and greatest of this and that. It's just supposed to be like a super high-end like digital device. I think that's the best way I can put it. I don't know. But this thing was released in 2014. Now this thing will actually be turning 6 years old this year, and it's funny because this thing doesn't really feel that old. It doesn't feel extremely premium. There's a lot of plastic going on about it, but it doesn't feel that cheap, and obviously you can tell it doesn't really look like the most modern devices anymore. And obviously BlackBerry learned from this, and eventually they went with the Key 1. I've already reviewed that one, and then eventually with the Key 2, but they're still keeping that keyboard layout for the people who want that keyboard, the physical keyboard design, which is what BlackBerry is pretty much known for. But they also had that BlackBerry Priv that I don't think a lot of people know about. That was a standard smartphone that actually looked like a smartphone, a modern one, but you were able to slide it up to get that keyboard, which is really, really cool. Now looking on the front of the BlackBerry Passport, you have a 4.5-inch IPS panel. It is actually 1440p, which back in 2014, there were not a lot of panels with 1440p displays. So this one is actually a pretty decent resolution display, to be honest. Now the one thing that I have to be honest about with this phone is that keyboard, if I'm being honest, is really hit or miss. Either people like it or they don't like it, and I feel like that's probably one of the biggest reasons people might have not bought this phone, was basically the keyboard. I think the screen itself is actually, first of all, it's a really nice screen. I really, really like this display, and I actually do kind of like the keyboard if I'm being honest. However, there are such huge advantages by having a digital and actually like a software keyboard on your phone rather than a physical keyboard. Now I'll tell you some advantages first with this keyboard. I actually kind of like it a lot. You can wake the phone with the keyboard. The keyboard has a really, really cool feature where you can actually swipe through the keyboard and web pages and things like that from the keyboard itself. So it kind of doubles as a trackpad, which is really, really nice. But again, the kind of disadvantage we have with it mostly come from the advantages of software keyboards. We have swipe typing, which is a really, really cool thing. And I use it every single day. I use it every single time I use a keyboard because it's just way faster to type on it than this one. Also, on some keyboards, especially on Android devices, you're able to adjust the keyboards on the height you want to, on the width of the keys and everything. On this keyboard, it's basically just there. You can't change anything about it. And software keyboards can get software updates, they can get better over time, and this keyboard can also get it too, but you'll never get something like swipe typing. You'll never get any of those cool little features that the new keyboards can have. Also, if you speak a different language, if you know a different language, you can change this keyboard based on the language. The letters will still be the letters there, obviously, because they're printed on there, whereas on a software keyboard, you're actually able to change those letters. So it really just depends up to you. I spent a lot of time talking about the keyboard, but that's one of the most controversial things about this device. You have a micro USB port on this thing. On the back, you actually do have a removable back, I guess, but the battery's not removable. But you also have a micro SD card slot, which is really, really cool, and I really do like that. I love that about this phone. So that really pretty much covers it up in terms of the outside. There's really not too much else to hit on there. Now, in terms of software, this thing was released with the Blackberry OS 10.3, and I guess it was upgradable to Blackberry OS 10.3.2. Now, I'm not too familiar with Blackberry OS and all that stuff, but in terms of the software, what I can tell you is that their UI, obviously it's a bit outdated. It's not the newest device anymore. It's actually pretty old if I'm being honest, but it's not unusable. Like, it's not like a completely horrible device at that. Now, because it's on Blackberry OS, I think a lot of people, they were confusing me when I read those comments from that last video. They said it wasn't Android and some said it was Android. It is an Android device at its core. It's just like a skinned version of Android. It's kind of like one UI, not really. It's like I guess it's like the Huawei phones before Huawei, Android split. It's kind of like that. You don't have the Play Store technically, but you can download apps straight from, you can download the APK files and go from that. And I guess it's not a bad thing overall. You're able to get a bunch of APKs installed that way, which is really cool. I just was not able to find the Play Store, which I'm not really freaking out about too much. So in terms of software, like actual software updates, you're pretty much outdated. Like there's no more updates you're getting right now, which is not a big deal. It's kind of hard to say what version of Android this thing left out on. I would probably say like Android KitKat, maybe Android Lollipop, I'm not really too sure. But again, it is a skinned version of Android, I'm pretty sure, because I'm able to install APK files on it. So if I had to say it, I'm pretty sure it's a skinned version of Android, which is not a bad thing. I love Android. But in terms of software, you are very outdated. This thing is not getting any more software updates, so you're pretty much outdated in terms of that standpoint. Now that pretty much covers it up there. Now hitting on the performance, this thing was released with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 chipset, a quad-core CPU, and Adreno 330 GPU, and there was only one model of the Blackberry Passport, and that was a 32GB model with 3GB of RAM. Now what I can tell you about the performance of this phone is that it's not a bad performing phone. You know, I was expecting it last year to be a little bit worse than what I was expecting, honestly, because first of all, this phone cost me like $100 something, which is a lot of money. I never even like got rid of it. I just kept it. So it's literally just been burning a hole in my desk for the whole entire time because I never even touched it since then. But in terms of the performance, what I can tell you is that it's more or less the same of what you expect from a 2014 phone. You know what I mean? It's not the fastest thing anymore. It's pretty good for the most part. You know, if you're doing basic tasks, Blackberry OS is really based centrically on basically like jobs and trying to get as much done in productivity. That's why their UI is based on the way it is, and the Blackberry Privs UI was pretty much the same thing too. If you look at a phone like this, you're trying to get as many things done as possible. You're trying to type out as many emails. And I guess in 2020, if you're still trying to do those things with this type of keyboard and this type of design, I think it'll definitely get the job done for the most part. I don't think it's a bad performing device. I just think their software is a little weird. It's just a little bit hard to understand, which is not a knock. Some people like it and some people love it and live by it. So I'm not sitting here saying like it's a bad, software device. It's not a bad performing device. I'm not saying any of those things. All basically what I'm saying is that I think for what we have now in the phone market and what I'm used to, things like the Galaxy S10s, the OnePluses, the iPhones even, for something like this, it just seems kind of outdated in terms of not only the performance standpoint, but in the software standpoint as well, because it is outdated. That's basically the best way I can put it. It's not a bad performing device, but if you can spend a little bit more money, you can get a really, really good performing device, even in the used market, you know what I mean? So I think the Blackberry Passport definitely is good, and I think it definitely, has its pros for sure, but I think for the majority of people, they will definitely probably not pick up a Blackberry Passport. That is probably for sure. So I think that's the best way I can put it without getting too heated in the comments. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of the performance standpoint. Now hitting on the cameras, this thing has a single 13 megapixel camera on the back and a 2 megapixel camera on the front. Now again, this is another thing where obviously megapixels mean one thing. The iPhone 11 Pros have 12 megapixel sensors, so you might think those cameras are worse than this one, but that is not the case at all. This camera is good enough. I think the UI is a little weird, but I think it's good enough. I think it gets the job done. If you need to take a photo, I guess you can do it. But the biggest disadvantage for phones, especially in this day and age, especially the Blackberry Passport, it only has a single camera setup. So even if that single camera setup was the best thing ever, it was the greatest quality, but it isn't that. But let's just say even if it was, you're missing out on those core hardware features that the newer phones have. Things like the iPhone 11 Pro, the OnePlus 7 Pro, the 7T Pro now, even the Pixel 4, those have extra camera sensors and hardware features that these older phones do not have, and these phones will never get them because you cannot get them from a software update. You can't get them from a you can only get them if your phone comes with it. So these things are lacking telephoto lenses, ultra wide sensors, all that. So it's kind of probably not a big deal to some people. I'm sure they won't care, but if you want to prolong the life of your phone, things like that will definitely aid in the overall futurability of a device like this. So that's pretty much my opinion on the cameras. Now ending it off with the battery life, this thing has a non-removable 3450 mAh battery, and that battery size is actually not bad for a phone like this. It's not really like a super crazy huge phone. It's not like has like a 6-inch crazy 1440p display. It's a 4.5-inch 1440p display, which is not bad still. And I think the battery life is probably one of its best things going for it. It's a decently sized battery with a decently sized screen, so it's not crazy powerful and all that stuff. So I think the battery life is probably one of its biggest advantages, if I'm being honest. Now, to kind of sum up the video and answer the question, is the Blackberry Passport still worth it in 2020? What I can tell you is, to some people, I think it might be worth it. It definitely has a place in the market. I think if you need a specific phone like this, I think you can probably make it work for the most part. For majority of people, I think if you have your heart set on this phone, or if you own this phone, I think you could probably make it work. But for someone like me, I probably would not buy this phone and use it. I mean, I bought this phone obviously, but I would not use it. I just don't think I would get all the functionality that I could from a device like this. I don't really see the need for a device like this, to be honest. But it is important to see what it brought, you know what I mean? I don't think a lot of people are wanting to buy this phone now, but it's more so to see what this phone brought in the market. And for that, I guess I'll give it a thumbs up for that if you want it. So that pretty much covers it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that means so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.